The practice of manual mobilization of the rib cage, the diaphragm and the abdominal cavity essentially comes from the perspective of moving and being moved with regards to your respiratory organs and also the musculoskeletal tissue. The perspective of being and being moved essentially comes from the idea that I can produce a movement with intention, essentially with my body. I can say move my arm and my arm moves. Or likewise, someone else, for example, or another object or a context could cause this arm to be moved. A very simple idea of this with regards to manual therapy is the manual therapist that will move you as opposed to you being moved. So whilst I can work with things like spinal waves to move my spine, I am moving. If there are some particular issues that I cannot move myself, I can be moved by a physical therapist or, for example, a chiropractor. The respiratory organs are directly responsible for making the action, the movement of breathing happen. So whilst we can invest practice in many different types of breathing tools that also work on the level of the biomechanical level, for example with the breathing practices we work with regards to increasing your tolerance towards carbon dioxide. This is a different subject, but this is working on the biomechanical level. We're actually working quite physically on the physiological level with some manual manipulation with the following tools. We will be looking at three particular places. Firstly, the abdominal cavity itself, then also working at the bottom of the rib cage into the diaphragm, and then actually the rib cage itself. The main perspective of this is that by mobilizing these areas manually, it's the same almost as if having a type of physical therapist help move your moving parts through the ranges of motion that you may not be able to move them through yourself. We start quite simply with just some tapping over the abdominal cavity, keeping the abdominals very, very relaxed. Make sure that you're not holding tension or holding your abdominals. Let it all out. The knees should be soft. Your hips should be soft. Try not to stand up straight. Let yourself sink down. And first of all, just feel the stomach soft. Some light tapping. The lower part of the stomach, the middle part, outer parts here. Then along the line of the diaphragm or the bottom of the rib cage, and then around the rib cage itself. Also towards preparing the area, you can quite simply with a good rub. You can grip the skin and move it across the muscles themselves, or you can just rub. It's not so complex. Now, one of the most important perspectives here is this perspective of, as I spoke about moving and being moved, rather than breathing, I am being breathed. I start by working this idea with the abdominal cavity. Take your fist, whichever fist, it doesn't matter, and just lightly apply some pressure so that the fist can enter. Now, when I work with this idea, it breathes me. So just listen. This is not the action of me breathing out, but rather the entrance of the fist into my abdominals, is what makes me breathe. This is the key concept that we'll use throughout this practice to ensure that we're not holding tension and that we're letting and accepting the entrance of the fist into the abdominal cavity. We'll work first with 3 different gradations of intensity or depths at these 3 different places, the abdominal cavity, the diaphragm, and the ribs, increasing gradually in the depth in which we go. We'll start with level 1. Level 1, take your fist. I also encourage you to use different shapes of the hand as well, different depths, different speeds. So this is level 1. Side of the hand, explore lower, explore higher toward the solar plexus. Just half a minute or a minute. Light tapping. Then with the ends of the fingers, we enter into the diaphragm. First, just this idea of 1/3 entrance. It means just the end of the fingers are going inside. Draw the line. All the way back, accepting the entrance, half a minute or so, tap, tap, tappa, then taking the hands, we press with the rib cage. Again, when I press against the rib cage, it creates an out breath. It breathes me. Explore different parts of the ribs. Don't forget the floating ribs at the back. You can also hold like a waistband. Tap, 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 tap. We now repeat at 2/3, taking slightly deeper. Different depths, different lengths, all areas of the abdominal cavity. And at no point am I taking an active breath. At no point am I breathing in. It's all happening. I am being breathed through this motion. Now entering to the abdominal cavity again, we go slightly deeper inside. Solar plexus. Start to peel the diaphragm away, as if peeling. Visit these places that have not had attention for perhaps many, many years, for perhaps your lifetime. The rib cage. It's normal if you get fatigue in the arms. It's quite normal. This is level 2 of 3. So a bit more depth, a bit more intensity. And the last, we work as deeply as possible. Now I'm letting my feet move. Try not to stay stuck to the spot. This encourages tension. Let yourself move. You're entered. Ooh. You don't have to be so forceful, but this is where you can move into. You can also drive upwards in such a way, and also downwards. Working with different shapes, the edges of the fingers, the edge of the hand. Now with the diaphragm, we are going under. We are going under with the edges of the fingers. At least this first flange of your fingers should find themselves underneath the ribs. We have the liver here to the right, the stomach to the left. So just be mindful of these places if you do feel some tension in there, but do reflect upon it and do explore and massage them. Enter sensitively at first. But then you can quite firmly grip. If you feel one side needs more work, tappa, 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 tappa. And lastly, the rib cage. Now we take more of an active breath in on this third stage for the rib cage. So we can work with the full expansion and contraction of the rib cage. So I breathe in through the ribs. Try to feel the ribs expand as you breathe, rather than just the shoulders. So here we've just worked through these 3 different levels. It's very important to work sensitively and according to your experience. Try not to just see, oh, how hard can I pull myself, in for the stomach. This is a wrong perspective for practice. The perspective is exploration. To see what is there, to feel where there might be certain feelings of pain, to feel things that are uncomfortable, to feel things that are restricted, and then over time feeling those change with practice. Another thing that's very important to mention is that when you're working with this frame, the aspect of being breathed, of breathing out as you enter, is something that also requires practice. It's not something that you'll be able to do right from the beginning. You may feel like you're actively breathing, you may feel like it's not coordinated, you may feel like you're too tense in the abdominal cavity, or maybe even your posture is blocking these things. This will improve with the practice, but likewise, on the other side, as with all the frames that we practice, the practice will then affect the way that you experience your breathing and the way that you breathe or feel on a daily basis. As well as mobilizing the musculoskeletal tissue of the breathing organs, we are also affecting many other things with regards to helping blood flow and lymph flow within the body, unblocking places where there can be blockages of energy because of tension or other things in the body. It's a type of manual cleaning, and also there's a coordinative aspect as well as, of course, this very physical manual therapy aspect for helping relieve the vital breathing organs.